Elon Musk has announced a new mission for Tesla. While previously it was to accelerate the world's transition to a sustainable energy, it is now to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable abundance. Well, what does he mean by sustainable abundance? How does he plan for Tesla to achieve this goal? How does the combination of robotics, AI, and transportation get us to this potential utopia? What might the path look like to get us to a world and society where there are no poor people and everyone can get whatever product they need? Cern Basher is a chartered financial analyst who's currently running his own investment advisory firm called BrilliantAdvice, providing wealth management services. Welcome, Cern. Thank you for joining me again.
Hi, Herbert. It's great to be here. This is, I think, a really important topic and probably the biggest challenge that humanity is going to face in the coming decades.
Yeah. So what we're going to go through from what I've seen you provide is your analysis of when Elon said we need to get to sustainable abundance, what exactly does that mean? How will robots get us there? And you've been fairly good about not being 100% rosy on this. There are challenges along the way, and we'll see what Tesla needs to do to get us there. So, just to catch people up, for longest time, Tesla's mission was sustainable energy, to get to sustainable energy. But then at a all hands meeting, he basically said, actually, we've now expanded that to include what he called, we are building sustainable abundance. And he showed this table, which has all sorts of products that Tesla's working on. Let's listen in directly to what Elon Musk actually said at the all hands meeting.
So one of the things that may seem like how do you pull it all together is where does AI and robots fit in this sort of sustainable energy picture? Like, is that just like some weird side project or what? But it's because what we're really aiming for here is maybe a better way to think of it rather than sustainable energy is sustainable abundance for all. So if you think about like what is the future that would what's the most exciting future that you could possibly imagine? Like, what does that future look like? It's worth thinking about that. Just imagine a future. What does that amazing future look like? How about a future where you can have any good or service you want at will? A future of abundance for all, where really anyone can have anything. It sounds impossible. It sounds like surely such a thing cannot be the case. But what I'm here to tell you is that that will indeed be the case. That the future we're headed for is one where you can literally just have anything you want. Like, if there's a good or service you want, you'll be able to have it, and ultimately everyone in the world will be able to have anything they want. What's key to that is robotics and AI. So once you have self-driving cars and you have autonomous humanoid robots, where everyone can have their own personal C-3PO and R2-D2, but even better than that, that's Optimus. You can imagine like your own personal robot buddy that is a great friend, but also takes care of your house, will clean your house, will mow the lawn, will walk the dog, will teach your kids, will babysit.
Let me pause it there for a second there, Cern. So the two words together, abundance and sustainable. Abundance, he's still referring to robotics. You're going to cover that a little bit. But what did you get from that first half of that clip?
Yeah, I think it's really important to break this down because the first part of that sustainable is to do with energy. And we need to move our economy to a sustainable energy economy, one that moves away from fossil fuels, one that doesn't pollute the world, one that improves our health, right? And by doing all that, you can get to the point where the marginal cost of energy over time approaches zero. It'll trend towards zero. I'm not suggesting energy's free, but it just trends towards zero over time. Tony Seba at Rethink X has done amazing work on this. And so that's what that part of it allows you to do. And then what Elon is talking about with AI, and the way to think about AI is it's just intelligence, and we're developing intelligent systems either that can move things like intelligent vehicles that can autonomously move people and stuff anywhere in the world. And then coming soon is the autonomous humanoid robots, or really any other machine can autonomously move and do work. And so the combination of abundant energy, sustainable energy, and autonomous machines, the combination of those two allow us to create essentially this vision of sustainable abundance, where you could have all the goods and services that we need as humanity provided for us by these intelligent machines. We've never had anything like this before, and so it's hard to wrap your mind around it, but it's the combination of these two things that will allow for that. And Elon, he sounds very confident that that is the future that we're headed towards. Now, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's going to be some difficult challenges to get there, but it is a pretty cool future. The way I like to think about it is, picture yourself as a kid, at least a kid in a fairly wealthy family. You pretty much have everything you want. Kids live in a world of sustainable abundance, again, in wealthy families or in middle-class families for the most part, right? They get what they need. All their needs are met. When they want to eat, they eat. When they want to, when they want toys and they want to play, they play. Elon's sort of painting that picture for all of humanity at some point, right? And so we're moving away from this world where we all have to trade our labor and our time for money so that we can survive. And he's suggesting that we're looking at a world where that is no longer the case at some point.
Mm.
But that's profound. There's some big changes in that. As exciting as that may seem to some, it's also very scary to others. Because for a lot of people, their self-identity is tied up in the work that they do. Now, we also know that there are plenty of people that successfully have delinked that. Children and people that are retired. So we know that it's possible. It's just a question for adults in the middle.
Mm.
Is it possible to have self-worth and a life worth living if it's not tied to work?
Mm.
I think the answer is yes, but I think it remains to be seen.
I think you'll explain to us a little bit, right? So abundance means that these products that you want can be made at a much lower price than they are today because transportation is more efficient. It's automatic, and then the building of these products today, these factories they're not 100% automated, even though you have the industrial robots. But with humanoid robots, you can automate almost all of it, if not all of it. That's the plan. And then because of that, really, it's the cost of goods at that point, right? The cost of materials. So let's discuss that in detail. But let's listen in first to the rest of what Elon himself said and how he positions everything.
And will also enable the production of goods and services basically with no limit. And when you combine that with sustainable energy from the sun and batteries, we could also, at the same time, also maintain a great environment. So that, I think, is the future that we want. A future where nobody's in need. You can have what you want. And we still have nature. We still have, the beautiful parts of nature that we like. I think that's probably the best future. What other future would you want? I think that's like the cool future. And also space travel, let's not forget that. So if you can have basically anything you want and travel to space and go to Mars, and that's about as good as it gets, It's like, that's it. So that's really what we're trying to do, is take the set of actions most likely to lead to a great future for all. So that's what I mean by sustainable abundance. And the combination of things that we're making with Optimus and AI compute will achieve an age of abundance for all. Like, actually. So.
Mm-hmm. Let's take a look at that table that he shared, and you can tell me what you're seeing here.
Yeah, to me, this table isn't optimally laid out for this new vision of sustainable abundance. right? But the components are unlimited energy, right? So the part there that pertains to that is solar feeding into battery storage that's then
Mhm.
optimized by the AI-powered auto bidder software. So
Mhm.
that's that triangle there on the left side of the chart, right?
Mhm.
Of course, that feeds into the charging infrastructure that feeds into charging the vehicles in the middle of the page across to the right, right? And of course, at the bottom, better battery technology and so on sort of helps facilitate that,
Mhm.
right? And then as you move up on this chart to that top row, you're adding the AI layer to it, right? So if you have unlimited energy and you're adding unlimited intelligence, you've got the two key ingredients for this idea of sustainable abundance. And so, for intelligence in the vehicles is the full self-driving software, FSD for Tesla, right? That feeds into the robotaxi network there on the right for moving people and goods around autonomously. That's driven by advances in AI compute. That's driven by Tesla's Dojo chip, as well as what the work that NVIDIA and others are doing. And then, of course, kind of minimalized on this in this picture is Optimus, but it's really one of the key ingredients because that allows you to have unlimited labor. And with unlimited labor, basically, there's no cap on GDP. Um, right now, humans have a child. It takes some years and some money and some education to bring that child up to productive standards. Right? We used to have child labor. We don't so much anymore. Um, it takes a while and it's costly. With Optimus, you'll be able to make one in the factory. It'll walk off the assembly line and almost immediately be put to work. Right. You don't have to send Optimus to college.
Mhm.
Optimus is not going to come out of college with a whole bunch of student loan debt. Like,
Mhm.
it's just a far
Mhm.
more optimal way of creating source of labor.
Mhm.
And for the first time in human history, we're developing a technology that's better than we are in so many ways. So all those components go together in creating this sustainable abundance. And again, in my mind, to simplify it, it's unlimited energy plus unlimited labor.
Yeah. And transportation, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
transportation, I suppose you could say, is labor. It's just the act of moving,
yeah.
goods around,
Yeah.
typically done, with wheels rather than people carrying it. But yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
And I've been saying for a while now that I think that the missing part here, or the part that's weakest, is the energy generation. They got solar, but it's tiny of Tesla's business. And then they just turned on lithium refining. So these things need to catch up to, unlimited energy.
I think
But
Elon's hope is that Tesla doesn't have to do it all,
yeah, gotcha.
right?
Yeah.
And that remains to be seen whether that's the case or not. Whether they do actually need to ramp up their efforts in solar right now, that they've really minimized that and let others do that work.
Hmm.
If we're moving to a world that's more, country by country in terms of making sure each country meets its own needs, and we're not going to be importing as much because of tariffs and different trade barriers and so on, then Tesla may have to rethink this position. But for now, we're able to import pretty cheap, solar panels from outside the country, primarily China.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's go through your analysis. So you've got this post that you did on your X account. Highly recommend people, by the way, go to X and follow at Cern Basher. Subscribe to him. He provides the most detailed analysis there is. So this was great. You said you call this phases of economic transformation, full automation with humanoid robots. Okay, how do we get to full automation with humanoid robots? And you have showed this photo of, what is it, apples, apples and
This is
robots.
this is an apple tree, and the metaphor here is if you're hungry, you just pick an apple off the tree. You no longer have to go to a supermarket to buy these things. Now, of course,
Right.
apple trees don't grow everywhere, but the idea is that with sustainable abundance, whatever you
Yeah,
need, you just basically take.
it's all there. It's in your grasp, available for free or relatively free. You just
Yeah.
go ahead and grab it. Get as much as you want
And
because
meanwhile, in
it's
the background there, the humanoid robots are doing the work to make
doing the
sure
work.
that that's sustained.
You got it. All right, so let's go through this. You got several, I think you have four phases. And the first one you called it early development and adoption. This is a phase where we are today, marks the early stages of humanoid robot development and deployment. All these companies are leading the way. Job displacement will be minimal at this phase. Public curiosity grows, but widespread alarm about job loss hasn't yet taken hold. Governments and businesses need to begin experimenting with policies to integrate robots. So we're at the early stages at this point. That's where we are.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this stage is it's maximum skepticism.
Yeah.
It's people saying, "Not in my lifetime." Oh, look how clumsy these robots are. They don't walk very well. They can't do much. But the thing that we're forgetting is that the development of these has been very rapid and will continue to be. We may even see an acceleration from here. We're starting to see the early stages of massive improvements in training for robots,
Hmm.
where you can train a robot in simulation and then put it in the real world and it knows how to do something it's never done before. That would be incredible if we can get to that point, right? And so
Mhm.
if we can train the robots largely through simulation, then these robots will be able to learn very quickly. Almost overnight, you'll see that a fleet of robots become more and more capable.
Yeah.
If that's the case, if that remains to be the case, then that's very exciting. This industry will develop very fast. If we encounter some bottlenecks with that, then that will slow down development.
I just watched a documentary of the Google DeepMind founder. I think his name is Dimas
Hassabis?
Hassabis.
Mhm.
And there's two documentaries. One was Google Go, or Google the DeepMind beat Go, but the second one was more of this story about how he started, what he was thinking, what they're trying to achieve. And you know the story really well. But basically, when they did the first system to beat Go, they had used human knowledge to
Mhm.
teach the computer how to play the game, and then eventually, after a long time, it figured out how to do it better than the best Go player. Then when they went to AlphaGo, they basically just removed the human off the out of the loop, and then
Yep.
they just let it play without giving any guidance at all, except for what is a win. And then it eventually, what anyways, the scary part was when he said that once they did AlphaGo, it took them. You set it up in the morning, and by the noon,
Mhm.
it would be as good as an average player. By afternoon, it's already better than whatever. Like within one
Grandmaster.
day,
Yeah.
how fast it is. And so this is the case where it could be that it could take us 5 years, 10 years for a robot to be able to do these, complex tasks. But it could also be, you never know, in by 2 years from now, it could be that the system is so large, right? The computers are so large, the simulation is so powerful that they can learn any task within an hour or something like that. Just crazy. It could be that that's the case. We don't know.
The amazing thing with AlphaGo is when they were training in the end, they didn't even tell it the rules of the game.
Yeah.
It had to figure that out by trial and error in simulation. And of course, it does that in seconds. But initially, again, it looks very clumsy. It looks very stupid in the way it plays. And I think
Mhm.
that's kind of where we are right now with humanoid robotic development. But yeah, the message here is that that could accelerate very quickly.
So in your second phase here, right? And we're going to get to the second phase. You call it the cost declines in industry disruption. Before I read this out, though, when we get to the second phase, Cern, how many bots are you thinking, and what time frame are you thinking? Are you thinking next year? Are you thinking 5 years from now? What are we talking about here
Yeah,
between these phases?
time frames are a little squishy, and I don't really want to try to predict that. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. I think I see a pathway where the time frame to get to the second phase could be pretty quick.
Mhm.
Could be a couple 3 years away, or depending on developmental progress, it could be longer. If I had to guess, I'm personally leaning more towards earlier rather than later, based on what I'm seeing right now.
But okay, yeah. So let's get to the cost. Let me read what you said here. Phase two is cost declines and industry disruption. So how many bots will we get there, right? So as the tech matures, the cost of human robots will plummet, making them accessible beyond early adopters. This phase marks a tipping point. Robots infiltrate retail, hospitality, construction, and even healthcare. Entire industries begin to reshape around automation. Job losses accelerate, sparking public concern. Workers struggle to retain fast enough as robots master even wherever wider array of tasks. Calls for universal basic income. People are being fired, not being hired. Worker retraining programs or even tech slowdowns grow louder. Policymakers face a delicate balancing act, fostering innovation while cushioning the social societal impact. If mishandled, inequality could spike, and then there's going to be unrest. Also, in terms of global economic competition, some countries may leapfrog others. This is a race. So, what number of humanoid robots will this require to go beyond just the early adopters on that, a tipping point?
My guess is at the low end, probably at least 10 million, and on the higher end, it might be 30 or 40 million time, range. I think, our understanding and doing the research in this area that there is, 8 to 10 million jobs short in the manufacturing arena. So you can probably replace those, and people don't really care because there isn't workers for those jobs anyway.
Hmm.
And then you start to get to the point that you start to replace humans. The humans that get replaced are going to be very loud about their replacement. So the media is going to jump on this. And so it probably doesn't take too many humanoid robots to get media's attention and fan the flames of this. And people are going to get very scared very quickly because of the media fanning the flames. Again, my guess is it's north of 10 million robots before we get to this point. I suppose it could happen sooner because even in that first initial phase where we are not replacing people, there's still going to be some robots are deployed that do replace people, right? And so it could happen sooner than that. As soon as humans start to be displaced, the
Hmm.
fear is going to grow rapidly and it's going to spread like wildfire, right? And so this is actually the most dangerous phase of this whole transformation. It's the one with the greatest uncertainty because policymakers won't really have thought this through yet. And they may be tempted to throw up ways to protect people's jobs, right? It's a bit like the whole union strategy, right? Let's band together, let's defend our work. But in reality, if you do that, you're going to put everybody in a worse off position. And so as humans, it's going to be very tempting to protect the workers because these are real people, real lives on the line. But from a society benefit, if a nation does that, they could find themselves falling behind very quickly. So it's a very, very challenging time. And I don't have the answers for how we get through this, but this is the most dangerous part of the whole thing.
So let me put together some high level numbers here. Okay, so first of all, which you just did, right? So 8 to 10 million jobs is open right now. Dangerous jobs, repeated jobs, people don't want to do, right? Boring jobs. So that's there's you can make the argument that bot makers can make up to 10 million bots before there's minimal impact to people. True.
Yeah.
So how do we get to 10 million? Let's see now. So if you go with Tesla being, let's assume that they are the leader, and no other robot company, even the ones in China, can make 50,000, 100,000 next year. And let's say that Tesla's correct, and they say Elon's correct, and the following year they make 5 million. Wait, 500,000 the following year, and a million. So according to Tesla, Elon, they won't be able to make a million a year until about 2-3 years from now.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say. Elon's looking to 10x the production. So if they make 5,000 this year in 2025, 50,000 in 26, 500,000 in 27, by 2028, you're looking potentially at 5 million. Yeah. So
No,
definitely by 2030, you've got the number of robots in
okay,
the world that we're
gotcha.
talking
From
about.
500,000 to 5 million. So
Yeah.
by let's say, yeah, let's go with
And that's just
2030. That's
Tesla, by
five
the
years
way.
from now.
That's
Yeah,
just Tesla. There's other
that's just
companies that'll be
Tesla.
trying to ramp up as
Yeah.
well. Yep.
Might be fair to say that you'll hit your 10 million mark by 2028, 3 years from
Sure.
now.
Yep.
Okay. And then after that, what happens then? Right? How many bots will be needed? How do we get to this tipping point? Yeah.
It's one of those things where there's a lot of companies. For example, Walmart has like 40% turnover. They need to hire 1 million
Right.
people every year. So in
Yeah.
that case, you're not replacing human workers. You're just, as people leave Walmart, you're replacing them
Hmm.
maybe with a robot. And so depending on who adopts this, and depending on the media response to this,
Hmm.
the outcry could happen sooner than I'm saying here. I
Yeah.
I I would be surprised if 40 or 50 million robots are deployed before anybody notices. I think it'll happen a lot sooner.
It's going to be very lumpy. There's going to be somebody losing their jobs next year for sure,
Yeah,
and the following years.
yeah.
And so you
We've
need to
already
kind of,
seen this,
yeah.
by the way, with AI, right,
Hmm.
in call
Hmm.
centers. So
Hmm.
we're already seeing job loss from AI, and this really is what this is. In this case, it's an embodied form of AI that people are already losing their jobs to AI.
Yeah, they are right.
So the outcry about humanoids, if it's just about humanoids, then that's misdirected. It's really AI in general that is the issue here.
Hmm.
Um, the issue in both a positive and a negative way.
Can we talk about then what are the policies that a company and a country can do? You've done a lot of work on modeling out robotics, humanoid robots, and the impact to countries and companies. You did such a great job. And one of the things you already explored, we've had discussions on this, right?
Mhm.
Is what if a company, Walmart, says that they're going to hire or they're going to buy robots instead? What if there's a policy that says, okay, you can't hire a human or robot fleet until you've proven that you don't have humans that can do that job. So you would have to have a job posting for 3 months, and only if no qualified, human applies for it, then you can go hire these human or robots. That's one example of a policy.
Mhm.
Another one is tax. All vendors will be taxed. So if you are a Walmart and you buy all these bots, you should pay the government, or actually, you two ways. One is you can pay the government tax, but two, you can actually put tax and put that money aside as employee retraining. So if anybody you fire, those people should be given money to survive for a couple of years or be retrained. I like these ideas very much. And then on the government side, you could basically governments and cities should tax robot vendors. And I think you laid out that even if they did a 30% tax, which is massive, it's still going to be very lucrative for everybody, including the city and the country. Now, if the city and country get 30% tax of any as the bots are hired and brought on board, they can take that money and give it as universal high income to their citizens. I love these ideas. And then you brought up the idea that, well, the problem is China
Mm.
and other countries may not do this. And then you've just put the Americans, whatever country you're doing it for, at this disadvantage. But it's such a great idea. Is that your policies?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because when you look at these things in a vacuum, right? Let's just, for simplicity's sake, we've got all labor today done by human labor, and then we're moving to a world where all labor is going to be done by robotic labor. Again, just two
Hmm.
extremes.
Yep.
In the all human labor world, we know what that looks like. We live in that world today for the most part. There's definitely a lot of automation, but for the most part, that world seems to be okay. We're comfortable with it, right? We're okay with having robots build cars because we don't really want humans doing that because it's dangerous work and it's hard and it's heavy and that kind of stuff. We're fine with that. Suddenly now you go to a world where the robots are doing all the work, the humans have no income.
Hmm.
How's that going to work? How are
Hmm.
people going to afford the things these robots build? Well, the good news is what these robots build will be super cheap. And so, on paper, we have an abundance of goods because the robots can produce them for next to nothing. And so it's just a question then is how does the monetary system structure
Hmm.
to handle that? Right? As
Hmm.
Elon has said, what's money at that point if you can
Do
just
people
walk
even
into
need money?
even
Hmm.
need money, right? We can
Do you need
produce
money?
an abundance of goods, just walk into
Hmm.
the grocery store and get whatever you need and don't even pay for it. Right? Some people do that
Interesting.
today. I'm not encouraging you to do it now, right?
Yeah.
So the question is though how we get from here to there,
That's just
right?
weird. Is that weird? I just go to a grocery store, pick up whatever I want. I go to the department store. It's like socialism, or what's the word?
It's
Communist?
we need a new word, I think, because we've never seen anything like this before. It's sustainable abundance, I guess, is kind of what that is, and what the form of capitalism that ends up being remains to be seen,
Oh my God. Okay. This is
right?
dangerous.
But it's
Uh-huh.
it's it's getting from point A to point B, I think, is a tremendous challenge in how we navigate that because what will
Okay.
happen along the way is people are going to lose their jobs and lose their ability to support themselves. And our welfare systems aren't strong enough now to handle that. And yet we want to be careful not to over engineer a new welfare system that now holds that technology back from getting to this final point
Oh,
at the
interesting.
expense of losing competitiveness to another nation that maybe gets there faster
Or
because
even
they have
speed of manufacturing, right? if you
yeah
if you let them keep all income, the vendor, then they can keep putting that in. So the next year they can do 10 million, and the next year they can do 100 million bots. But if you slow
yeah
them down because you get taxed on them, then it actually takes them longer to get this your phase three here, full automation, and
right
then society
yeah
actually suffers longer. Interesting.
yeah I wish it was clear. To me it's not. I've been struggling with this for some time in terms of the pathway and how we move through this. The challenge is it's going to hit some people in the pocketbook. It already has, it will going forward. It's going to cause them to lose their job. Now, right now, people can retrain and do something else. But what happens if, in the process of retraining to go into that new field, that a robot replaces that in 3 weeks, and suddenly you've just been retrained into something that's no longer necessary because robots are way better at doing it than humans are now?
Mm.
And then you retrain yourself to something else. And before you even finish your retraining, now robots are doing that work too, right?
Yeah.
That's the challenge. Like things are going to move so fast that we won't even be able to keep up with it. Whereas
Mm.
before we could retrain and people were good
Right.
for the rest of their life in that new field because it was going to be around for a while.
Mhm.
Now I'm saying I'm not sure that any job that
Any
involves labor,
job. Yeah. A
right, including
surgeon.
surgeons.
I just said that. Surgeons, accountants like you,
Yeah, yeah,
financial analysts like you, YouTubers like me, it's like any job is going to be replaced because you got both AI and physical AI. So
that's
it's
right.
like,
So does there need to be some regulation that says, okay, we can deploy humanoid labor for this, this, and this, but not these fields? Maybe.
mm,
And again, we run the risk of if the regulation's bad, then suddenly you put yourself at a real competitive disadvantage, right? Let's say arbitrarily you protect all doctors, right? And you
mhm,
say we're not going to allow humanoids in the hospital for XYZ reasons. Maybe that works, maybe it doesn't. Other countries, for example, that don't do that, they may find their cost of healthcare is a lot lower than ours, and they may find themselves with better outcomes than we do. Who knows? Again, I don't have the answers here. I'm just sort of flagging some of the issues.
mm.
But we're going to face some real challenging things. And the key message I think here is this is a true test of humanity's ability to adapt. Now, humans have proven themselves to be a highly adaptable species, probably the most adaptable species on this planet,
Mm.
right? We haven't gone extinct yet, and many other species have because of us. The question is, can we adapt to this change that is going to hit us faster than anything we've ever seen before? And that's an open question. And Elon, when he talks about this, he's like, "Well, I give us, 80% chance of success, basically, right? Like there's some chance we can't get through that." Has he thought that answer through deeply, or is he just sort of saying that? I don't know, but to me, right now, I'm a bit more 50-50 on that.
Yeah, I'm at the 50-50. I'm looking at dinosaurs. Dinosaurs roamed the earth for 165 million years. Humans have been here for a blip.
Right?
Okay. A blip.
Yeah.
So they survived longer than we have. I'm not so sure we will survive this, honestly.
Yeah. And the way I think of politics is distilled. Politics is how we treat each other, particularly how we treat other people that we don't agree with. That's the nature of politics.
Mhm.
And to me, right now, that's not looking so good.
Yeah, it's not looking good.
Right?
It's
We're still very tribal. Humanity is still very tribal. We associate ourselves with certain groups, and it's the right and the left, and Tesla,
Mhm,
non-Tesla, and all this stuff. Right?
mhm.
We're not so good at looking out for everybody, and I think we're moving to a world where you really need to be pretty holistic in your thinking in order for us as humanity to navigate this together, so that we're all collectively in a better spot. Because if we leave too many people behind, they're going to rise up and try to take what we have. That's the age old story for humans, right? So this is a very going to be a very interesting period of time in the next 10
Well, that's
years.
why we're having this conversation now. This is the beginnings of this. Okay, so you have your phase three here. Phase three is full automation and economic boom.
Yeah, this is the
Okay.
one where you start to see some amazing benefits because if GDP, for example, is the
Mhm,
combination of labor times the productivity of labor, you're
mhm.
expanding one basically to unlimited, the amount of labor, and the productivity of that labor also expands
Also
massively
expands. Gotcha.
because the robots can work basically 24/7,
Yeah.
7,000 hours a year instead of 2,000 for humans.
And very likely superhuman speed. So superhuman
Yeah,
speed, things can be sped up
that's right.
easily.
That's right. Right. So traditional jobs are obsolete.
Mhm.
Right. The robots perform most tasks, including the ones that we consider to be complex today, like caregiving or creative work or surgery or whatever you want to call it. All the
Yeah.
different things that we think are highly complex. Right. And the other thing, too, I'll point out is this: to a robot, all labor is the same. When you and I get educated, go to college and get an education, there's different levels of labor based on the amount of education we've received. A robot doesn't care whether it's surgery, plumbing, or cutting vegetables in a kitchen. It's all the same to a robot. They don't have a bunch of college debt that they have to pay off. right? They don't
Mhm.
have to charge higher hourly wages because of all the education they've had. For a robot, it's the same. So once a robot starts to enter into a field, it's going to bring down that labor rate rapidly because it can do it so cheaply.
Mm.
That's the other crazy thing I think that's going to impact in that phase two is just how quickly we see deflation in incomes in some areas when robot labor starts to compete against humans, right? Because my robot plumber doesn't need to charge $75 an hour for its work. So that's just one aside. But phase three is more exciting because now we're starting to see the true benefits in the economy. From a wealth perspective, owning the robots, I think, is going to be key, right? You want to own the means of production. What's the means of production? Well, it's humanoid labor, right? And so, to the extent there are owners of robots and non-owners, then you potentially create this massive wealth gap. But then we need policies that make things more equitable in some way, right? Shared ownership of robots, some kind of income redistribution. Again, these things, we hate to talk about, but we're going to have to. Otherwise, we're going to see society fracture in ways that are is pretty scary.
But CERN, uh, okay, there's this idea that people think in their heads, and I keep hearing it over and over and over again. Okay, people go, it's whoever owns the robot. It's whoever owns the robo taxi. That's not what's going to happen. Sir. The vendor who creates the robo taxi has no incentive to sell it to consumers so that you can buy one.
Mhm.
The vendor who creates the robots has zero incentive so that you can buy a robot. There's nothing because, okay, it cost me, let's say, at some point it'll cost them 20 grand, but let's say it's 50 grand to make a robot. You can make that up in 6 months, a year in terms of ROI. The earnings is so high. And that okay, so I'll just take the money and I'll spread it out over 5 years, whatever, and it's like minimal on the monthly loan basis. I don't need that much asset. I just can't imagine that that's going to happen. So this idea that it's I'm going to be rich because I've got 5 robots and you only own 2. No, there's going to be Corporation A. Hopefully, it's Tesla that we have share ownership on, that owns 50% of all robots in the world. I don't know.
I agree with you. Although, again, I had Elon confirmed on a post I wrote last summer that Tesla would sell their robots. Now the question is, at what price?
Yes.
Right? It might be so high that it's like, well, what's the difference? Just pay the monthly subscription fee, right? And that remains to be seen. And we have certainly theorized that the value of robots is a lot higher than most people think. While Tesla can make them for, let's say, $20,000 or $10,000 a piece one day, they're worth a lot more than that. Now, they can also break apart this business model and sell them for a small profit, but then to effectively use them, you're paying subscription fees or licensing fees to Tesla on a monthly basis. That could happen too.
But if you think about it, if it costs a robot vendor today 200,000, 300,000 to create one robot today, but then eventually 3 years from now, whatever, it's going to take them down to 20,000 per bot. If that's the case, you would sell the bot today and then you will lease it in the future,
Yeah.
not the other way around. So for me, when I hear somebody say that, oh, we're gonna sell it, they're just protecting themselves from a positioning statement that we're not going to be like this overlord that's going to own all these bots. I don't know. Just a
Well,
way to,
and we'll see. And I've been saying I think that Elon recognizes the fact that he needs to share the wealth. Like,
yeah.
for example, my modeling on robotaxi, Tesla makes a ton of money if they keep all the vehicles themselves.
Mhm.
Elon has publicly said that they would sell cybercabs to people,
Right.
right? Which is, again, a means to generate a source of income. Tesla doesn't have to do that. They'll make more money if they keep them all for themselves. Now, some people think that Elon will backtrack on that and they'll sell Model 3s and
Yes.
Model Ys, but not
Yep.
cybercabs.
Yep.
So it remains to be seen. But Elon did clearly say that they were going to sell cybercabs to people.
But
Um,
again, back to your argument there. Let's say Elon and Tesla does that. Great. But does that mean Chinese company number one and number 500? Are they going to do this?
right.
And what if they don't? What if they keep it?
Yeah.
Then again, it's that race to who makes the most profit and then therefore make the most bots, therefore make the most profit, therefore make most bots. And then you quickly become disadvantaged because you're trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. It's the age old battle between labor and capital. And today you might want to think about it as the labor is owning the bot or the car, and the capital is owning the shares. So which camp's going to win? I don't know. Maybe you want to be in both camps.
Mm.
Not financial advice, but I'm just saying in terms of thinking about that, there is this age-old battle between capital and labor, and
Yeah,
some of them sometimes they win at each other's expense. And so if you're thinking ahead in terms of how to position yourself for this new world, you might want to have a foot in both camps.
exactly. That's yeah. You and I both believe that philosophy. That's the
Yeah.
only way to join them. Join
Right.
the company that's making the bots if you can somehow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, okay, so this is it could be very very much utopia, but it can also be very yeah dangerous. I'm still at the 50-50 as well as you.
Yeah. The transition moving from where we are today to this new system is going to be, I mean, I hope it's easier than I think it is, but man, I think it's going to be tough
Mhm.
because of the real world impact to a lot of people. Unless our politicians have really thought this through ahead of time, they're going to be reactionary.
Yeah.
And reactionary policies are never the best, ever.
Mm.
Right? If you're forced to make a decision in a time of crisis, that is not going to be the best decision that you could have made. You would
Mhm.
make a better decision if you could build consensus with people beforehand and looked at all the different possibilities rather than being forced to act in a time of crisis. Right? You've got the people outside with the pitchforks. What am I going to do? Oh, let's appease them. Let's do XYZ. You
Mhm.
might get a better solution if you didn't have the people outside with the pitchforks threatening your life.
Yeah.
Right? Clearly, that's obvious. So that's going to be tough. And then you move from phase 3 to phase 4, right? And this is an entirely new paradigm where goods and services are so abundant that they are near zero in cost. Society has found a way to adapt to a new way of life focused on quality of life, creativity, personal growth,
Mhm.
relationships with whatever it is.
Mhm.
It's not, your identity is not tied up in the work that you do. It's more tied up in other things, who you are and et cetera. Robots handle all the labor. Goods and services become dirt cheap. They're produced without environmental harm, right? We have a clean, pristine planet. You may also have a lot of work being done in space, manufacturing in space. What's another thing we haven't really talked about as part of this. It's not just everything here on Earth. And then traditional money diminishes in importance, right? You may still need money for certain luxury items that are still scarce. Some other scarce items could be land, could be energy, although I don't think so. Could be compute, although I don't think so. Even land, you could have structures on or under the ocean. You could have structures in space, right? So I think we could be heading for a world where basically everything is abundant. The most scarce thing is probably our time.
Yeah, the land part, everybody keeps saying. I've heard many people say that, right? Oh, the land is, everybody will still want to live, near the beach and the ocean, and that's already, owned and scarce. I don't think so anymore, right? You can build a beautiful home, an oasis, right, in the desert, and then have AI. Maybe you'll be satisfied with an AI screen, and it's going to be so real life, or the other way around, right? Some people are saying that no, if actually the real life experience will become so much more worth. You pay more for that because you every day you'll just use there's a difference between a computer generated versus not. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, living by the ocean has its pros and cons, right? You have to deal with salty air and different things, right? Like it's not all sunshine and rainbows living by the ocean, right? Tsunamis and hurricanes and stuff like that, right? I mean, I'm seeing here living in Florida, that a lot of people now have decided to move away from the coast,
Right.
more
That's
inland,
right. That's right.
right? So I don't necessarily think that this oceanfront property is the only thing that people value. Um, but my point here is that we can create a lot of very desirable spaces to live
Mhm.
that don't exist today. Once you've got an abundance of energy and labor, you basically
Mhm.
build whatever you want, right? And there's certainly plenty of space in space to do that.
Mm. Yeah, so I agree with you. So, guess which country in the world for the last 8 years has the happiest people uh, considered? Happiest people.
Well, I think Bhutan always had ranked high on that list. I'm not sure if they still are,
Uh, I
but
just looked it up in Grok, and the answer
yeah,
was Finland,
yeah,
and of course Sweden and Denmark, and that's nearby. And I think the reason is because, and I don't know how accurate this is, guys, but I read it or I saw it in some documentary before. Surprisingly, it's the high tax. And surprisingly, it's because they tax everybody so much that if you are a surgeon, a doctor, versus a garbage man versus some, whatever, a person who just delivers coffee, whatever, a waiter, you're basically about the same amount of money that you make. That then the middle class is the same, and then there, and because it's like that, people don't do jobs that they don't want to do. You're not forced to become a surgeon if you hate medicine, and in fact you want to do something else. Just do it because you're going to be paid. You're going to have the same amount of money, and then they take all that tax and they create this, the social safety net. This high income, universal high income. Basically, everything's a little bit cheap. I don't know. I don't know if any of this is true, but that's what I understood. So I'm just
Well,
trying to compare that society with this potential future society.
yeah, I think that's also interesting too. I think there's a couple of things there. One is that those nations, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, et cetera, traditionally were societies that were pretty homogenous.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in recent years, they've introduced a lot of immigration. And so things may not be so cohesive
Right.
there anymore,
Yep.
right? There's a bit more of an us versus them attitude in those countries now. I would
Mm.
also say that happiness is a bit of a fleeting measure, and that may not necessarily
Yeah.
be what we're trying to optimize for, because you could have a very happy nation, but from an economic progression standpoint, it's not really going anywhere.
Hmm.
Right. Again, to my point about Bhutan, great place, great environment, but economically,
Yep.
it's not anybody's top 10 list. And so they may be the happiest place in the world for 50 years, but they're left behind economically.
And also think in the Finland example, uh, they can choose their job of choice that gives them purpose. Well, in this new society, there's nothing to choose.
Or everything to choose, because your livelihood is not dependent on it. Right. So if you
There's
wanted,
nothing to choose. Even
well,
if your
or
livelihood is not dependent on it, you wouldn't be able to become a surgeon if you want to become a surgeon.
sure, no, in that case, that's correct. But you could do other jobs even if even if you didn't earn income, because it wouldn't matter, right? You could
Yeah.
choose to be a craftsman of some kind because you just enjoyed making wooden sculptures. Even though the robots can do it better and faster than you can and more cheaply, you might just do that because you enjoy that work, right? And you're not doing it because you need to sell it. You're just doing it because you
Mm.
enjoy that activity. Much like the way that I think a lot of retired people
Yeah.
occupy their lives today, right? They do the things they enjoy doing,
Yeah.
right? They're not doing it for the money. Same thing with kids. They do things that they want to do because they are enjoying it. They're learning. They're exploring, right?
Mm.
And I think that may be the thing now for all of humanity. I've kind of thought that you know if you look at kids versus parents, what's the parent's role for children,
Mm.
right? It's to protect, it's to provide, it's to educate, it's to guide, and it's to care for them. Those are maybe the top five. There's certainly other things that parents do for the kids. In a world where robots
Mm.
can do everything that we do, what's the robot's role with us as adults? Protect, provide, care, educate, guide.
Mhm.
The roles that we're shifting the roles from adults to kids, from the robots to everybody. Kids depend on adults. We're going to depend on the robots, right? For better or for worse. Again, there's pros and cons to both of these scenarios, where we are today and where we're going towards. Um,
Yeah.
we've we've gone through these changes before in terms of dependency on things.
Uh-huh.
If you think about going from hunter gatherer to farmers, it's changing the nature of humanity. As a farmer, you'd say that, yeah, that's a better place. I don't have to hunt and gather. It's safer. I don't have to worry about the saber-toothed tiger. I can build a fence around my property and keep myself in. But now you're dependent upon different things, right? The weather and rain and so on. Whereas a hunter gatherer, you can move around to wherever you need to go. So the same kind of thing now is we're creating different dependencies. And in this case, we're creating a dependency on robots. And if that dependency isn't a safe one, a healthy one, then we have problems. But if it is, then that can lead us all to a better place. Either way, it's coming in whatever form this is. And
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be one of those people out there that's sort of saying, hey, we need to all think about this, prepare ourselves, prepare our families, prepare our governments, right? Talk about it with other people, start to think about this, because this change is coming and it may come faster than you realize.
Mhm.
Not
Um,
to scare anybody, but
no, I think you
yeah.
need to, right? Because it's a fact of life. It's real. Elon himself I wish I got that quote, but he basically was asked about, he said that he purposely delayed Tesla going into humanoid robots because he was very concerned about all this. We're talking about the future, what it's going to do. But then he understood at that point, which is like 3 years ago, at that point, it doesn't matter if Tesla doesn't do it. All these companies are doing it. They're all building these bots already. The technology achieved it. It's not like you can stop one or the other. Then he goes, we need to do it because at least, have my finger on the scale here. I can figure out where they should go and so forth. So it's like same thing here. Like we can all hide in the sand. But the reality is it's here. It's going to happen sooner than we realize. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting future. I closed my piece sort of saying that,
Mm.
and I mentioned this before, this journey to full automation will attest our ability to adapt. This may be one of the ultimate tests that humanity has faced so far because it's such a massive change to every single country, every single business, almost every single human job is going to be challenged in some way in the next 10, 15 years. How are we all going to adapt to that? It's the ultimate test to humanity. Um, you know, the opportunity is extraordinary. Can we get there safely? I hope so.
Yeah, maybe you get on a starship, go to a new planet, and don't have bots there, which is not going to happen. Bots will be there, and then you start a whole new society, hunter gatherer society, all over again.
Yeah,
uh,
no, and
Not
that
that
would
that's
be
better. Who knows? Like you're saying, maybe that was terrible. Maybe it's
that would be a different
progress
set
is
of
always better.
challenges. Yeah, some people might see the opportunity in that, but that would definitely bring about its own set of challenges.
We're going to become Wally. You know that movie Wally, where
Mm.
like all humans do is just watch entertainment all day long, and they.
I mean, Mars is great. Mars is a fixer-upper of a planet, and Mars is going to take hundreds of years to fix up. So this is very long-term thinking on Elon's part, and I think he's very noble for that. And I think history will remember him well for this. But the reality is, for us, our kids, our grandkids, our great-grandkids, Earth is going to be the most important place for us, for most of us, for a long time to come.
Thank you for doing this, Cern. Always great. You not only focus on the details, you also look at the big picture, and this is the one. And you are the bot bull. You've studied the humanoid bot as much as you can, and we got to start talking about societal impact. Sustainable abundance, I think, will take Tesla very far. And some people have actually said now, and I kind of believe it. Hitting physical AI is such a massive market because it's every market.
Mm-hmm.
It's like and all of a sudden we're in the sneaker market. Now we're in the basketball market. We're in every market. So that this is the biggest thing that we need to get into. Thank you again, Cern. Appreciate that. Follow Cern on his X account at Cern Basher. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Herbert.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.